Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Attract and Retain Millennial Workers. Our presenter is FPSA member Sherry Shepard with the firm Direct Recruiters Incorporated. My name is Dolores Alonzo, and I am the VP of Membership here at FPSA. This webinar is being recorded, so for those of you that are FPSA members, let your colleagues who were unable to listen to it live today know they have access to it in the members only section of the FPSA website. Before I pass this over to Sherry, I want to cover a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Everyone is muted by default, but you'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to Sherry today by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. I believe it's over to your right side. You can send them in at any time during the presentation, and Sherry will address them at the end. So thank you again for your time today. We'll get started now. Give me a few seconds to pass the controls over to Sherry so she can begin her presentation. And Sherry, thank you very much.
Okay, Dolores, we're good?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, great. Dolores, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm really excited to share some of the insights that we've learned through our experiences when attracting and retaining future generations. So I am the Director of Packaging, Material Handling, and Food Processing here at Direct Recruiters. We're located in Cleveland, Ohio, but we work all over the country, in some cases all over the world. We are a relationship-focused search firm, and we do assist top-tier organizations with recruiting, acquiring, and retaining high-impact talent for mission-critical positions. My team does focus on food packaging and food processing. I've been at this for 10 years, and I'm the proud parent of 2 millennials, so I have a little bit of insight as to what's going on from a personal level. So generations in the workforce. So there's different ways to look at who's in the workforce these days. There are the traditionalists. That's the smallest group that's represented. That's about 2%. Then there's the baby boomers, which most recently has been overtaken by the millennials, as now the millennials are the largest group now in the workplace. If you think about traditionalists, it used to be you'd go to work, you'd put your head down, you didn't want to talk to your boss. If your boss talked to you, there was a problem. Baby boomers, they wanted a little bit more. Generally, they stayed in their jobs a lot longer, and they wanted maybe an annual review. Millennials, they're a little different. Millennials want to know what's going on all the time, every day. They're more accustomed to instant gratification and transparency. So there's just a few of those differences that exist. So when we talk about millennials, we're looking usually at about generations of about 18-year time frame. So for millennials, anyone born after 1981 to 2000. They also go by Generation Y or Generation Me. And then, of course, the generation right after that, which are the kids that might be still in high school, Generation Z. Also, I generation, those folks that have iPads, iPhones, they were involved, are much more savvy in that area. They're also the homeland generation, because if you think about it, Generation Z, were born after 9/11 and have only known about Homeland Security their entire life. So it's a little bit more on what they've been a part of. So who's a millennial? What do we recognize as a millennial? Well, there's Mark Zuckerberg, obviously, a very famous millennial, and then Taylor Swift. And of course, one of our favorite millennials here in Cleveland, LeBron James. Even though they didn't win the championship, he's still a big millennial in our hearts and minds here in Cleveland. Now, of course, FPSA has their own millennials. They have the FPSA Young Professionals Group. These are folks in the organization that are 35 years or younger. It gives them a chance for engagement in established companies, and it gives these members the opportunity to learn. They get to be involved with this group. It shows that its members have a desire to impact their careers, and it gives them a chance to impact your organizations. Now, this is a millennial picture of what's going on at my company. We're about a company of about 55 people. almost half of them are millennials. Some of them have been here just a couple months, and some of them have been here as long as 10 years. So we've learned through experience in what we've tried to do to maintain and retain them. We strive very hard to bring more on. We work hard to keep them engaged and happy, and this can be reflected in the success of our company and the success of the millennials at our company on an individual level. These are my millennials, Scott and Aaron. Scott lives here in Cleveland, and Aaron lives in Chicago. And yes, my kids got ribbons and trophies for everything they ever did. So I'm sorry, that's part of why they are the way they are. It's just part of how the generation has evolved. And in case you're wondering, we're empty nesters, and I can't tell you anything other than it is a beautiful place to be. So why do we discuss this? Why is it important to talk about millennials in this generation and in manufacturing? Well, baby boomers are retiring, right? 38% plan to leave the workforce in the next decade. And 62% of manufacturers say that millennials only make up a small fraction of their workforce. So there's a disconnect there. 90% of employers say that retaining new hires is an issue. So that's what we want to talk about, how to hire, attract, and retain them. So millennials, as we mentioned earlier, have taken over baby boomers as the largest generation. They're the future leaders of companies, and it's important to know how to attract them and retain them. So let's address a little bit of that. Now, every generation has characteristics, and we have to always be careful not to generalize too much, but there are some things that have been identified as traits for millennials. They're passionate, they're innovative. We all know that they're very tech savvy, and we know they like things to happen quickly. They're accustomed to instant gratification and recognition. As I mentioned, the ribbons, the trophies, we all know that happened while they were growing up. They like to know what they've done and that they've done well at it. As far as transparency is concerned, they're used to having a view of everything they've ever that in front of them all the time through social media. So they want to know about that in their work life too. They want to see what they're doing, how it's impacting what's going on, and how they're being impacted. So transparency is very much a part of their life. Now, according to a survey by Deloitte, 66% of millennials expect to leave their organizations by 2020. So it does fall upon us to figure out how to get them to stay on board because they're the biggest generation right now. Okay. Obviously, I'm not a millennial because my tech savviness has just gone out the window. Hang on one second. Okay. All righty. So some of the things that millennials have identified that are important to them. They like creative work. They like something that has meaning, something that's mission-oriented. It's important to them to know that what they are doing is for the greater good. So if you have a company that is very involved in sustainability for the environment, that's important to them. If an opportunity is for them where they can impact someone's life or a group of people's lives, that's important to them. So what it comes down to is how do we spin this? How does your organization spin what you're doing so that the millennials, while they're looking for opportunities, can see that you're giving back and it'll satisfy that need for them? When future candidates or future employees take a look or trying to find a job, one of the first places they go is to your company's website. Is your website up to date? Is it relevant? Do you list your core values? It's always been important for candidates to be aware of what's on their individual Facebook pages. That point can't be stressed enough in the age of social media, right? But it can't go without being said that it's just as important for your company's Facebook page, your company's website, your LinkedIn profile, your company's LinkedIn profile to be relevant and up to date. 72% of candidates trust that is what's said on your employer's website is true, or Facebook page is true. So it's very important that your social media is up to speed. So once you get them interested in your company, the next thing that is going to be involved is the interview process. Now, of course, when we're interviewing candidates, we want them to be able to sell themselves. It's very important that they know how to sell themselves to the company. Well, we also need to be able to sell them on the company. So you have to be able to tell them what you do that is socially conscious, what you do to boost morale. How do you, within your organization, recognize success? How often are goals set and measured? This is very important to the millennial age. They want to know what you're doing that's going to attract them and get them to come on board and get them to stay. Another thing that's important, thinking about millennials, they're extremely connected to their cell phones. From my experience, you're more often than not going to get a response to a text message. Email and voicemail for the millennial generation does not get the amount of attention that we would like or that we're accustomed to. So with that being said, I text candidates all the time, especially in the millennial generation. It's very important that you're text savvy as well as tech savvy when it comes to talking to these folks. Now, as far as texting goes, I can guarantee that my daughter has already texted me 6 times today, and 3 of those have only been within the last few minutes that we've been doing this webinar. So I know about texting with the millennial age. So keep in mind too, once you get them talking, and whether it's voicemail or email, and of course texting, you need to get involved in the interview process. Now, thinking about that, of course, face-to-face interviews are what we all want. We want to know what these people look like and act like in front of someone. Sometimes that's just impossible to schedule. More often than not, we are setting up Skype interviews. This generation appreciates that. They're very accustomed to FaceTime and Skype. We're doing these on much more of a regular basis. So keep this in mind as you're trying to schedule interviews on a personal basis. You still may be able to want to bring them in person to see what they're all about or let them see your facility, but doing that Skype interview can go a long way to saving you time and money. Okay, so you've interviewed the candidate and you're ready to make them an offer. Let's talk about that. Now, of course, as with everyone, money's important. It's always important for people to know that they're going to make a living. But some other things that have been identified as by millennials as even in some cases more important are their benefits. Do you have flexible work hours? What's the vacation schedule? Can I work remotely? I had a candidate, she was in her 20s, this was a few years ago, and she really wasn't concerned about the base. What she wanted to know was if she could get 4 weeks of vacation. That's crazy, right? Somebody in their 20s asking for 4 weeks of vacation. Well, I was afraid to ask, but my hiring manager, he was savvy enough to recognize that this person had what it takes to be successful in their organization, and it was worth it to him to give her an extra week of that 4 weeks of vacation, and at the same time, he saved a little money on the base. She's still with this company. They still really like her. She still really likes her job. So I'd say that was definitely a win-win. Now, I've had other hiring managers who did not like this idea. They're much more rigid to this type of change. You have to be able to weigh the options. What works for you? This strategy for candidates is not an anomaly. You have to keep in mind that these things are coming, and you have to be more aware of them, and they're more commonplace. What can you do to kind of, if not meet all the way, meet in the middle? What can you do? A few other things to keep in mind when you want to land millennials is they do want to work remotely. If you can, occasionally allow them to work remotely. That'll go a long way. You will find often that they work harder if you're able to meet some of these expectations. I'm not saying you have to do all of them, but these are just things to keep in mind if you're trying to get somebody on board that fits your bill. Also, you want to make sure that you let them know that they can get involved socially, culturally, and civically through your company, because of course, as we identified, that's important to them. So some things that you can do to attract them, some things that we've done, just to give an example, we play in a kickball game. It's an organization where we can raise money for cancer research for children. It's so much fun. We're out there cheering each other on. It's very competitive, as you can imagine, but it certainly is a good time, and it's a way to pay back. We also, once a year, go on a walk race. It's on a Sunday morning. As you can see from this picture, it's not only our employees, but it's their families, their parents, their children. It's just a good opportunity for all of us to get together just a couple hours on a Sunday morning, and again, we're giving back. And then finally, another thing that we do is we raise money or gifts to give to one of the local hospitals for children who are suffering in the hospital, just gives them a gift every so often. And it's just something that we do to give back, and it's just a little thing that your organization can do too to show the millennials that you are impacting the greater good. So a few things that some of my clients have done and that I'm aware of. One of my clients, they actually donate equipment that they manufacture to local high schools and to universities, and the students can learn about the equipment hands-on. So it's a local company. When they're ready to go to work, that's a company that they recognize as someone that tried to help. So it's something that they've done to give back. Another company that I know of is called Lazerba, which is a food processing company. They offer mentoring programs for their new hires to get them up and running. And then one thing that we've done, and I'm sure some of you have done as well, is offer a scholarship program to a local high school. We did this. We had 50 applicants, and everybody in the company wanted to participate in scoring these essays. Of course, we had to pare that down. I think I had 5 or 6 people here review the essays, and then we were able to offer a scholarship to a local high school student who had a career track of tech on the tech or engineering side. Again, just a little thing that you can do to give back. So you got that person to accept your offer. They're on board. How do you keep the millennial in place? Couple things to keep in mind. Mentoring programs. Mentoring programs are wonderful. It gives a more senior member a chance to mentor a junior member. It's a good back and forth. Doesn't always have to be about work. It's just a nice give and take, and they have that sounding board within the office. Now keep in mind too, there's reverse mentoring, and this allows you, it's just as valuable. It may be for someone that is a little less tech savvy to have a more tech savvy millennial come in and teach them some things. I can't tell you how much I've learned from my teammates who have been in my company less than a year. The things that they've taught me and helped my success and speeded up my process, they know how they can impact, if they know how they can impact the bottom line and how they can help others, that's very important. Another thing that is really nice is putting in town halls, town hall meetings. This is an opportunity for everybody to get together. Occasionally you give out shout outs within these town halls to let people know how they're doing within the company. It gives members at the town hall meeting to see the direction of the company. Again, as we said, millennials like to know what's happening all the time. So it lets them know that the direction the company is taking. Often these are things that only senior leadership is aware of. So keeping the millennials and the rest of the organization up to speed lets them feel so much more a part of the team, and they can see how they're impacting the bottom line and where their career is going within that organization. So 29% of millennials are engaged at work. Only 4% of company and hiring managers or HR leaders believe that they're good at engaging with millennials. 63% of millennials believe their leadership skills are not being fully developed. I know of an organization where they hire people right out of college. Previously, they would always train them really well, but what they did is they overworked them, they underpaid them, and their turnover was tremendous. The company saw that this was a big issue. They have since made adjustments to their pay structure. They put career tracks in place so that their employees could see the possibilities within the organization. They could see how they would be mentoring someone, then managing someone, and then managing a bigger group. In a short amount of time, they had a career track that they could envision. They knew where they were headed. This has helped this company increase their retention of their employees. So what are some things that you can do to help retain your millennials? Maybe providing flexible work schedules in a relaxed workplace. Keep in mind that millennials, their friendship and their lifestyles are very important to them. If you create a culture where within that organization you are doing things socially, it goes a long way. We go to Indians games once a year. I talked about the kickball games. We'll do that in the summer. We also do a March Madness event, which for many companies is having the brackets. Well, we've taken that a step further. We actually play basketball. We have 3-on-3 one Friday afternoon early in the March Madness series, and it's a lot of fun. We get to watch each other play basketball. Again, extremely competitive, but it's just a short time out of our day where we get to keep everybody engaged and excited about being part of the greater team. So another thing to keep in mind is in a work role, you always set goals for success, right? Often those goals are set at the beginning of the year, really don't think about them again, or you haven't put things into practice until the end of the year when you check to see how you've done against that goal. One thing that goes a long way is recognizing these goals on a quicker basis. We've turned to what's called 90-day worlds. You set a goal at the beginning of the year, you set a goal at the beginning of a quarter. Throughout that quarter, you measure on a weekly basis to see how you're doing to meet that quarterly goal. You do this every quarter, and then by the end of the year, the goals are met much more often. There's so much more attention to goal setting. Again, with millennials, this is so important. They want to see how they're impacting the bottom line, how they're being impacted. They want to know that what they're doing every day isn't just busy work. It's important to them to know that they're participating for a reason. They also want to be held accountable. They know that if something didn't go right, what did they do? How can you fix it? And at the same time, they want to be praised for success. It goes back to what we've always known. Everyone wants to know they're doing a good job. An attaboy, a shout out, a pat on the back can go a long way. Also, if you celebrate birthdays within the organization, maybe once a month you have a cookie cake or ice cream. You get together for 20 minutes once a month. It doesn't take a lot of time just to gather on a social level, just to let everybody know that you're in this together. You chit-chat for a little bit, and you go back to work. But again, it just kind of recognizes everybody as an individual. So if you celebrate these little things, it goes a long way. And if you think about the millennial generation, they're very wellness oriented. It's very important to this generation to be physically fit and aware of where they stand. So start a wellness program. Have a board in the office that recognizes when someone's worked out, and if they've worked out consistently over a time frame, give them a little reward. Have fresh fruit in the office. Just things that will let them know that their life is being recognized as a part of the greater whole. So some of these things are put into place to reduce turnover. Create career paths for them. Let them know that they're not just going to be stuck at a desk and they're not just going to be doing busy work all the time. Let them know what they're doing and why they're doing it. It goes a long way to retain them, which is really what you want. The relationships within the office are important, back to the baby boomer and the traditionalist where your boss was, you just saw them when there were problems. Have much more of a relationship, more of a loyalty, a back and forth. It's not just about work, it's about life in general, and that's what they want to know. And we all hear this. People don't quit work, they quit their boss. So keep that in mind as we continue to try and attract and retain this generation. So I hope that that's helped answer a couple of your questions for you. If you need anything else, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I think it goes a long way to see what we can do for this generation.
Sherry, thank you so much. That was just great information. I do have two questions for you. Okay. The first one, a nice long one, is I believe every generation values the 21st century workplace environment that allows flexibility in schedules and telework. However, as a manager, I believe it has to be earned, which is the case in my company. I have employees that have worked for me for 5 to 10 plus years that have earned the trust of the company and, more importantly, the trust of the customer. So they are given those perks over my newer millennial employees. I'm curious as to why that is not understood by many of the millennials, that such a benefit needs to be earned.
I think that's true. I think that, right, a lot of this is earned. But at the same time, I think if you can give them a path, give them an idea, okay, if you do X, then you will receive Y. If you let them know, I understand that working remotely or whatever the case may be is important to you. What plans do we put in place that will help you get to that? What are you going to prove to let me know that you're the person that can do that, that you're able to get that? yes, a lot of it is earned, but sometimes you do have to be maybe a little bit flexible, but giving them an idea as to what it's going to take to get to that point, I think, goes a long way.
Great, thank you. And the second question, not every millennial is the same, but I sometimes worry about the lack of formality or business etiquette I've witnessed in interactions with customers. When addressing that, I'm sometimes met with a blank stare. How can I stress the importance?
That is unfortunate. I think that it definitely is out there. Obviously, I think every generation, again, as we talk about generalizing too much, has their own issues. But I do think that, again, telling them up front what is required. You know, you need to speak properly. You need to use proper grammar. You need to dress appropriately. I think these things, again, need to be addressed up front. If you let them know upfront what those rules are, then that should be helpful. Yeah, sometimes some people just can't be helped, and I don't know if everybody really has the ability to understand that. You need to think about that and how they fit in with your culture. And I think some of that hopefully would be addressed in maybe the interview process and trying to vet some of that out. If you're able to get into some of those questions, how do you handle criticism? How would you talk in this type of a situation? Have them do a writing test, an oral test. Maybe vet some of that out in the interview process. Maybe that would help to eliminate some of that.
Terrific. Thank you again. Everyone, Sherry's information is up on your screen, so if you'd like to reach out to her directly with any questions that you may have that you prefer to ask offline, feel free to reach out. So I just want to, again, thank you, Sherry, for a wonderful afternoon webinar, great information, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Okay. Take care, everyone.